Okay. Alrighty. So let me. One sec. There we go. Mostly because I can't hear the words anyway because of the mic. Okay. There we go. Hello. Yeah, no, it's weird, like, after not being, like, alright, one sec. I didn't mute the Twitch stream that I have open. There we go. Okay, so there's that. There's this. All of that should be good. Okay. Maybe sort of. Alright. Hi. Hello. How are you doing? Hoping everyone's having a good day. Yeah. So it's it's been a time of it the last week or so. And for anyone in the chat or watching this later, not already aware, my main like art Instagram account got hacked, so been dealing with that. And it's kind of impacted my ability to concentrate on things like reading, which is why we're doing 1 to 4 instead of 1 to 6 like it would have been. But yeah, anyway, there we go. Yeah. Anyhow, we shall see. What happens? Oh, also, right? I have not looked at this, but I forget if it's like. Actually, let's see. I think there's like 100 that got copied to it, but someone digitized a bunch of like old herbals, like, you know, antique level. Oh jeez. Okay, one sec. Apologies for the jumpy visual there. Okay. But yeah, so if there's anything in there that is like publicly accessible, that might be a thing to look at for a future Botany book club read. Otherwise, I'm gonna end up doing a couple of book reviews on stuff from things in there, so just stuff to be aware of. And things that I rediscovered while trying to clean things. So there's that. Yeah. Anyway. How's everybody doing? Yeah. How is everyone doing? After hacking, our first reaction to the thumb drive is eek, scan it. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's one of those that I found a listing for it on Etsy sometime last year. It like, for a timestamp on that, I ordered that the same time that I ordered like the mystery books and stuff that like is posted as a video from last year. So it's just been sitting there for a while. But yeah. Yeah, no, that's incidentally part of why it's still sitting there and hasn't been accessed. Yeah. So we shall see on that. Yeah. So so far the book is it's an interesting like a slice of life sort of thing into the lives of who I'm assuming are people who are fairly well known, at least in Brazil, but who I'd not heard mention of before picking up the book. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that develops and stuff. But yeah. I do appreciate the 50s era like clear up though. So there's that. Yeah. So what do we think so far with it was up and now I'm just like, showing y'all a picture of the computer. So we've got notes. Oh, a thing. Like, alright. If it's just a straight biography, like my brain processes it a certain way. And if it's an autobiography, or if it's like fiction, it's like another way. Because there's times that the plants that are symbolic of certain things with attributes that do other things, it are just a plant because it happens to grow there. And there's times that it's very symbolic of the area. So I made a note in here, because, Lota, drives a Jaguar, or a Jaguar, depending on where you are and how it's pronounced, in Brazil. Now, it's just an interesting thing, right? The car named after okay, yeah, that's, one second. That's got a typo. There we go. The car named after the large cat native to the region, traversing the jungles and bringing humans to their domicile in what was once its predecessor's home. So, yeah, don't close that. Okay, there we go. So there's that. Sophie, Lottie, and Bishop are interesting, but we're not sure the romance is really a healthy one. Yeah, it seems like it seems like it's not the most healthy of relationships, and that, like, there's points in there that it seems like Bishop is just kind of going along with it, and it's kind of a weird dynamic on that one. The house Lota is building also seems to be what we would call a sick building from the start. Maps of mildew on the walls. Yeah. It, like, there's, like, especially if, like, one of the people living there already has a lot of respiratory issues. Like, it's, and I ended up reading part way into, I guess it'd be chapter 5, Rio de Janeiro 94, or 1994. And I forget the person's name who was narrating that section. But she was recalling how going to see Lotta and Bishop at the Lynn? The Lynn apartment? When she was first meeting Bishop, because they hadn't interacted before. And, like, Bishop's, like, half dead, like, really uncomfy, like, having a massive reaction to eating a cashew fruit, and Lotta's just there, like, oh yes, it's so fabulous, fabulous. So, just the vibe is weird. Yeah, Nana. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Like, and it's one of those that it's another, like, compartmentalization thing. Like, as, yeah, oh god, the oyster ears, that, that whole, like, that whole situation was just like, Oy. And, okay, speaking as someone who has some very severe, like, food allergies, just the idea, right, of having an inflammatory response that is so impactful that you're still, like, trying to actively not die after, like, a month of just having, like, 2 bites of it. Like, of course it's dropping frames. Why wouldn't it drop frames? Tal, buddy, I just got you back from the computer doctor, so, like, can you not with the computer problems today, right? Like, tell your CPU to chill, and we can work with it. Like, I'll even let you have a sleep after this for a bit. Just, like, calm down. Hmm? You gonna behave now? No? Okay. Like, right as I say that, oh, right, right as I say that, it's just like a red screen. Alright. So, anyway. Um, hopefully the frames stop dropping and being annoying. But, oh, Chelsea. Wait, asleep? You know how to bribe your CPU, right? Right? Like, you obviously want a nap right now, and it's in the middle of, like, the work time. So, like, do your job, and I'll let you have a nap. You know? And it's not even that I had the computer, like, up and running, like, all day or whatever. I turned it on to do the stream. like, bruh, can you not? Can you not? With the shenanigans right now. Thanks. Maybe. Yeah. So that's where we are right now. Okay. Why are cashew fruits like that? I don't know. Actually, um, uh, hmm. Okay. Hmm. When ripe, the whole thing falls off the tree and the bottom part is gathered for processing. The false fruit, called cashew fruit or cashew apple, is edible, but is very perishable. It's often left to rot, but can be eaten cooked, raw, or used to make liquor called Kimmer. Where was it? Called something. It okay. It cut off with the article in the Google, and now I can't find where that part of it is. Okay. Cashews are in the same family, Anacardiaceae, as mangoes, pistachios, sumac, and poison ivy. Many plants in this family produce urushiol, an oil that can cause a nasty, painful rash. The cashew stores this stuff in the lining around the seed, which makes cashews very difficult to process. They are usually roasted to release the fluid, which is collected for other uses such as varnish. After that, the hardened lining must be removed by hand. In the cashew, the ovary develops outside of the fruit, which really makes it a false fruit, since by definition fruits have seeds inside. The false fruit attached to the false nut looks like a pear with a little boxing glove hanging off the bottom. When ripe, the whole thing falls off the tree and the bottom part is gathered for processing. The false fruit, called cashew fruit or cashew apple, is edible, but is okay, here we go. It's very perishable. It's often left to rot, but can be eaten raw, cooked, or used to make a liquor called finny. When the fruit and its juice are available, the fruit and its juice are available in parts of the world where cashews grow, they are apparently too perishable to appear in stores in the US. Okay. There's a lot more info, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. Seriously, among the weirdest looking fruits, they are. Like, seriously. Like, what? Really? So it's like eating poison ivy. No wonder cashew allergies are common. Yeah, so... Exactly. From the sounds of it, what we consider the nut, or the external fruit, I guess, is more stable, but yeah. But it kind of reminds me of the nutmeg fruit stuff too. But I've only had that in a jam form. But yeah. That's an interesting one, because the nutmeg jam, mace, and the nutmeg are all from the same plant. Okay, and there's a link to the article that I was just reading from in the Botany Book Club channel on Discord. So, in case anyone is interested in the rest of it, there's a lot of it's essentially connected to our review about chili lime cashews from Trader Joe's. So there's that. Why does it remind you of nutmeg? So for that, the fruit it's an interesting flavor. I'll say that. It doesn't taste like nutmeg exactly, but it's like, I only had the jam the once, because it was one of those that, okay, it was one of those that they brought out of the ethnobotany storage so that everyone can try it. But it kind of tasted like a spiced apricot, almost. But a little bit more subtle. And you've got the nutmeg, that if you have too much nutmeg in your system, you're gonna have a really bad trip, which too much nutmeg tends to be like 2 whole nutmegs, all at the same time. the mace is from the really thin sheaf of plant material directly around the seed, and that's dried and becomes mace. And then the fruit is outside of that, and it kind of like, let me see. Yeah, it kind of looks like a plum, sort of. Like so. And you've got the bright red in the middle there. That is, yeah. The red would be the mace, and then the seed itself is on the inside there. Don't think of nutmeg coming in a stone fruit. Yeah. So that's the setup there. So the nutmeg, as it were, is the stone of the fruit, and the mace is the bit directly outside of it, which is interesting. But yeah, it's one of those that if you have too much of it, it's like really bad migraines and hallucinations and everything all at the same time, and just not good. I am not speaking from personal experience, but it's one of those that, because students are weird about stuff, they made a point of saying, like, yes, you can get high from this, but don't, because it's gonna be really bad if you try it. Making cashew, not nuts. Right? Yeah. Exactly. So, yeah. The more you know. Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the relationships and stuff are depicted in here. But it's interesting so far. Sparkly knowledge sound acquired. Yes. Da 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 da. Da, da. Exactly. Okay. Also interesting, right? I know you don't have to necessarily, like, have a degree in something in order to be very adept at whatever it is. Like, that, whatever. Especially in an era where, like, depending on where women weren't really going to university as much, you know? Especially not for, like, architecture. But like, I find it interesting that Lana was having, like, if you're building your own house, you're gonna have some, like, opinions on how it's going and stuff, but I just find it interesting that she was having that much of a, loud discussion, I suppose, with the guys trying to build this thing, and there's like a bunch of different textures and shapes and patterns and everything just kind of together, which if it works, but I also know that there's certain like angles and materials and whatever that are more likely to retain moisture and whatnot, especially if you're living in what's essentially, from the sounds of it, a forested environment. That you, again, interesting. But yeah, like, you can totally have a whole lot of knowledge without the degree. Okay. L-I-A-S. Yes. Eliana is a long-stemmed woody vine that's rooted in the soil at ground level and uses trees as well as other means of vertical support to climb up to the canopy in search of direct sunlight. It doesn't refer to a taxonomic grouping, but rather a habit of plant growth, much like a tree or shrub. But TBH, we suspect Lota is much more expert in botany than architecture. Yeah, that's like, if her main, like, passion of the day was the garden, I would be a lot more likely to take her advice just immediately on board than when it's to do with the structural integrity of a house. So, I don't know on that one. Which is doubly interesting because she seems to be, what was it? Like, there was a lawyer that was putting forward the I guess the licensing so that they could build housing on the land. So she built a house for him, and then there was somebody else that she built a house for. So now it's like the third one that she's building. And I don't know. Hopefully, all of them were well constructed, and the guys that she got to do the actual construction process were able to interpret whatever it was that she wanted in a manner that was structurally sound and didn't have issues and stuff. But like, there's a difference between the, like, planning and the execution, I guess, is kind of what I'm going for. So, I don't know. Of course, at one point, there was a mention of an architect who was actually doing the building, who was in charge of the building, so, yeah. You can kind of see that then. Anyway, yeah. Oh. So I was looking up Eliana's, and because of, like, how the plants grow and everything, there's a lot of species that are like that, including, like, grapes and stuff, but also the African dream herb, aka the snuffbox bean. And what was it? Not related to the actual text that we're currently working with, but interesting nonetheless. Okay. I'll I'll read it in a second, but I gotta resituate again. So we should be good. Okay, here we go. So for the snuffbox bean, their seeds have a thick and durable seed coat which allows them to survive lengthy periods of immersion in seawater. Yeah. Which, just as a pictorial reference, right? That's the seed pod. So, yeah. But yeah, it does sound rather fairy tale like. And that one's also linked in the thingy now. Yeah. Is with the housing and stuff, and just, like, in general construction and design and whatnot. What was it? The different textures, shapes, and levels would always put the observer in front of unforeseen angles, pushing them because it was so beautiful to accept what transgressed the norms, which is a good that's a good vibe that works. But yeah. But also, right, like there's a part in here where she's in a heated argument with some of the Masons, and like, and they're wanting to do some of it one way. She wants them to do it another way. Unlike basically all the other houses in the area, instead of what was it, slats or clay tiles, it's got a tin roof on this thing. And it's made of aluminum plates and steel versus like the local materials, which at that point Rio shares a climate with like the rainforest. From what I remember, Rio is just outside of the rainforest, like edge, at least what it is now. Or not. Never mind. The distance between Rio de Janeiro and the Amazon rainforest is 2,860 kilometers. So there's that. Never mind. From what we understand, Samavaya was basically in or right on the edge of the rainforest. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because like if you have local craftspeople building your structure who know how to construct in the area that you're trying to build, there's a reason that certain materials are being used. Because the majority of the time, you might introduce a new, like, a structural component, but because it's more or less humid or the heat differential is off or something, it doesn't want to work the same. It doesn't want to work properly. It tries to break down or freeze or any number of other things, you know? There might be more of a proneability. The materials might be more prone to like rust and stuff then. Like there could be something that is new to the area that works just fine, but if a construction is made, because at that point it's an equatorial region, right? if you're constructing something out of steel and glass, it's going to get pretty hot or pretty cold, depending on what temperature the outside is. It's not going to be climate controlled like some structures that are more insulated would be. So that's also something to keep in mind. Like, I appreciate the whole, what was it? A house made entirely of glass so that she could watch nature. Like, I get it, alright? But you're in an equatorial area that, like, more or less gets fairly constant sun. So if you're in an entirely enclosed glass house, it's gonna be real hot in there because glass magnifies light and heat and everything. So, yeah. I don't know about that as a structural choice, but alright. Now, if you're using that as like a greenhouse or something, alright, fine. If you want to live in a greenhouse, that's a choice, but okay. But just, be aware of that going in, because there's only so much that the aesthetics can take care of, But yeah. I don't know. That's that's where I am with that one, at least. I don't know. Yeah. Alright, so let's get the bike in here. Okay. At least construct a house that clears the smoke from the kitchen stove properly. Right? Like, okay. If you're going to be moving into a place that's still under construction, that's fine. But, like, presumably, at least, whatever, like, sleeping space is present in the house was finished, and the kitchen was more or less finished, yeah? So, if you're going to have an internal cooking system in the kitchen, why would that not be a thing that was present at that point? And if the smoke doesn't naturally just like vacate the premises via a chimney or something, I don't know, you might want to be doing your cooking outside at that point, Just, you've got a couple of stonemasons and stuff hanging around, so like they could just make a barbecue one day. Like, I don't know. At least then when you like burn whatever it is to the point that the whole room is smoky, it would dissipate a little bit, Just, But seriously, I know for ours, we've got a fan. We've got a hood fan over the stove. So, have some kind of way to get the smoke out of your space. It's not that big of a thing, right? That's a thing that's kind of been in play for a long while as a thing that cooking spaces kind of would benefit from having. But yeah, oh yeah. So just Lota trying to decide whether or not Bishop's ears that looked like oysters would be tasty or not, which that's a thought process and a half. We've got Mary sitting there, which it sounds like it was the first time that Bishop had cooked for Lota, because I can't remember her name. It starts with E. But she was sick with some liver issues. So wasn't there making food and stuff. And where'd it go? There we go. So they're sitting down to eat something, and Mary is sitting there. What was it? Mary waited for Lota to sprinkle some pepper on Bishop and eat her, because she was staring at her that much, I guess. I just have this note in here. It's Bishop and Lota out here with the subtlety of a brick wall to the face. Yeah. Even the old cabins had vents for the smoke, right? It doesn't have to be high tech or modern or whatever. Just make it so you don't die when you try and make soup or something and you end up kind of burning it. It shouldn't be that much of a thing, right? I don't know. Seriously. Also, there's an interesting thing in here too, where Lotta's talking about her childhood and how, as things were more restrictive, she rebelled more, versus Bishop, that as things were more restrictive and whatnot, she just kind of tried to blend into the background to not draw more attention to herself, which, yeah, I feel that. But there's a passage talking about how the bishop would come visit Lotta's mom a lot, and how she'd always feed him all these specialty food things like creme de menthe and a lot of port and cigars and whatnot. And what was it? I made a note in there that Lota and her sister had to be paragons of decorum and modesty. Meanwhile, the clergy is gorging themselves on worldly delights and everything else. So, yeah. Lota putting pepper on everything, including pancakes, is such a symbolic word. It is, though. It's like, just that extra spice. Seriously. Which, that actually makes sense, though. Because from what I remember, it was... okay. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So Bishop was trying to figure out what to do for lunch and found a bunch of like random spices and chives. So they would have been savory pancakes, so putting pepper on them would make perfect sense. Actually, sweet stuff and pepper works too. Just, it depends on the flavor profile, really. But if it's like honey or maple as the base, pepper kind of adds a little extra kick to it, and it works usually. So there's that as a thing. Yeah. Okay. No, come on. Nope. One sec. There we go. There we go. Alright. Okay. Now, there's a note about Bishop's childhood, right? She's talking about how she lost her parents really young and was living with her maternal grandparents. And they seem pretty great, you know. And then she was however old she was, and her paternal grandparents came together. But, like, I know there's people that, like, you know, this person is our blood, so we have to make sure they're raised the right way. Whatever that even means. Because, you know, otherwise it would reflect poorly on the bloodline, or whatever BS. But, like, there's mention of, like, you know, neglect and not really wanting her to be there and everything. So, if they didn't really want to take her in, if they really didn't, from the sounds of it, want anything to do with her, why even bother on that one? You know? Like, that The only reason that would make sense in that context is that, like, she was under jurisdiction of her mom's family, and her dad's family had money, so they felt entitled. What? Okay, one second. Because duty and obligation above all. Yeah, right. Seriously. Okay. Apparently, the power cord is not actually plugged in right now, so I'm gonna pop off screen for a second and fix that because I've got a battery running low alert. So, BRB. Just gonna mute the mic for a second. There we go. Okay. We should be back. Just to make sure it's actually charging. Yes. Alright. We're good. But yeah, the duty and obligation and whatever. Ugh. It's just a no on that. Also, there's a aw, thanks. There's an interesting discussion about mental health in there too, because like, she was prescribed cortisone to deal with the rash, the post cashew rash situation, and it seemed to have helped her depression, which is an interesting thing. That's not a correlation that I've heard before, but alright. That's cool if it did. Also, there's the whole like juxtaposition of super ultra modern and the primitive that like anthropology brain is always kind of like when someone is describing a culture or a region as primitive just because. But yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah, cortisone can sometimes cause an almost manic reaction. Really? Okay. Because that's kind of what I was reading with the like mass writing situation. But yeah, no, this is the first that I'm hearing that it would have that impact. Good to know, though. Good to know. So I've just heard it in conjunction with like an allergic reaction, or like as a mitigator from an allergic reaction. So nice. Also, right, just the note that because the cashew kind of fits in between a whole lot of different things, like the cashew is not a fruit but a peduncle. That the fruit of the cashew tree is called in the vernacular a cashew nut, which really turns out to be a nut within an almond. Can you imagine such a muddle? In this way, following the law of similarity, cashew illness tends to afflict people going through an identity crisis. Interesting logic there, but alright. And then we have she named the toucan Uncle Sam, which like is a choice, but like it's a interesting American situation there. But B, Toucan Sam. Like, the Fruit Loops guy. I don't know. I don't know about that. But alright. The pre-Fruit Loops guy, rather. Yep. But, yeah, okay. So, again, the whole Lota Bishop dynamic, right? Like, from what we know at this point, like in the story, because historical figures versus like in context of where we are in the book. So as far as we know in the book so far, right? Lotta didn't have that great of a childhood, was moving around a lot. Like from Nana's description, like in the 1994 chapter, it's like, oh yes, well, I mean, she's like she grew up going to school in like Europe, during the times that her dad was like the word is not coming to ow. The word is not coming to mind. The only things in my brain right now are banished and excommunicated. But like, dude was forced to leave the country. Essentially. Uh, so we've got that, and then, but Lota was very outgoing with everything. Exile. There we go. Thank you. He was exiled from Brazil. Okay. So we've got Lota, who grew up with, all that, but was a very, outgoing, kind of gregarious person. And we've got Bishop, that grew up trying real hard not to rock the boat, to, just, stay in the context of, someone that would be likable, so that she's not becoming a problem, I guess, for the people around her. Child Lotta sounded like a menace. Yeah. A lot. Really. And then you have both of them growing up, essentially having the same persona that they had when they were kids, but slightly more chill and stuff, in different contexts. Edalusa, that's who I was trying to remember the name of. Who was sick. So, the both of them growing up, and Bishop just kind of drifting through life, and periodically engaging with certain components. And you have Lota, who's just like, yes, you're interesting. You're part of my entourage now. Right? You want to stay, right? Maybe. And as a birthday gift, no discussion, no whatever. It's just, as a birthday gift, Lota gave Bishop a ring that had her name and the date that she asked her to stay in Brazil engraved on it, as on the one hand, it's kind of a romantic thing, but on the other hand, it's the this is the date that I claimed you on there. So it just depends on how you're looking at it and the context, because I don't know on that one. With how just going along with whatever Bishop seems to be, it just it doesn't real sit right there, It just yeah, some red flags there with that. I don't what? And in the lead up to that, a part of Bishop wasn't really sure whether she wanted to stay or not, and Lotta's trying to convince her to stay, of I'll build you a little a studio out behind the house, and it'll have a kitchen and a big window so you can watch the river, and lights and stuff, and so are you trying to make sure that your prospective person has a space to write, or are you trying to buy someone's affections? What are you doing? What? So, don't know. I don't know about that. On that one. It's just like, and then a little bit later, right? That I know that racism against the indigenous peoples is pretty dang prevalent throughout Central and South America. And the whole you're trying to isolate your prospective partner thing too. Yeah. Yeah, that one didn't even fully register until just now, but yes, in a big way. In a very big way. Because, like, there's not even a studio that she's going to or anything. It's just, like, the studio is on site behind the house. It's not even, like, adjacent to the house. It's, like, behind the house. So you have to go through the house to get to it. Not even as, like, a protective thing. Just, like, because... So, I don't know about that. I don't yeah. So there's that. It's never really clear if Mary was a romantic interest before Bishop. Yeah, like, Bishop comes on the scene and Mary's just there vibing like, oh, okay. So we're doing this now? Okay. Right. Okay then. And like from the intro, I know there were some issues with the translation. They were trying to translate it verbatim, and it what was the phrase? Like, it was too melodramatic and didn't really make a lot of sense. So there might be certain elements that, because the transliteration is what it is, like, the message is slightly different, but from the sounds of it, they worked really hard to keep everything, like, true to at least the spirit of how it was written initially. So that's probably not what we're saying here. What we're seeing here. But yeah, also something of note. Also, and we don't know by this point whether or not he's gonna show up again, which he might do, I don't know. But Arnaldo, is commenting that business is healthy and almost all the people who own businesses were Portuguese, or at least all the businesses that he was interacting with were Portuguese. It's like, yes. Not that, any of the indigenous people would want to have any kind of business in the area. No. Which I know right now there's a lot of racism against, like, indigenous communities in Central and South America. Like, I mean, like, the world over at this point, there's, racism against indigenous communities. But from what I remember hearing, it might have even been more pronounced at the time that this is taking place. on top of, like, there's a few instances where the locals, especially for people who have darker skin, are referred to as savages, or people speaking a nonsensical language. So I want to say that that's, like, how Bishop and Lota would have been interacting with people, not, like, the author. Because it seems like it's trying to, and from the intro, I was saying that too, where because there's a note from the translator, and he was saying that the author was trying to make sure that each of the individual characters had their own voice, and have that be reflected in how that character interacts with the other people in the story. Speaking of bigotry, it was kind of funny how Nana complained about the newspaper implying Lotta and Bishop were together, and the rest of the friend group was just like, but they were, so what? Exactly. I didn't quite get to that part yet, but yeah, like, what was it? There was, like, Nana was sitting down to read the paper, got through part of it, and, like, there was a phone call from somebody else who was complaining that there were, like, secret things that were talked about in the paper, and that was just not cool. And that's about when I stopped reading, because it was 4. But yeah, like, it's like, they were, though, for like a decade from the sounds of it. It wasn't the most healthy of relationships, at least, in parts, but well, there you go. Because, like, with that, right, I don't remember if I was reading, like, a review. I don't think it was. Or like, the intro or something. But there was some mention of the book talking about, like, Bishop getting annoyed that Lotta wasn't paying attention to her, like, years down the road. I think it's in the intro, actually. And, like, moving out of the city, and, like, there was an affair at some point. I'm just gonna say, right, if you're not feeling, like, seen and acknowledged by your partner, granted, not the best one to give relationship advice and all that, but, like, just as a thing, right? If that's the case, like, maybe try talking to the person about that. I don't know. As a thing. Yeah. Of course, with the red flags that have already been flying all over the place, don't know how that would translate, like, 10 years down the line. Exactly. Because it seems to be like they weren't together for, like, 10, 12 years when the rest of the events happen. But, so, anyway. There's that. Yeah. Oh yeah, the last the last thing that I highlighted, right? Ruth Behrensdorf, who gave swimming lessons at the Copacabana Palace Hotel, lived on the first floor. She became a nun, then quit. A sensational person. It's like, Nana, you have an interesting way with the phrasing things, right? Like, just that, those few lines. Like, she was a nun for a bit, and then just decided that it was boring, so quit. Fabulous! Alright. There we go. So, yeah, that's as far as I got in the reading. Yeah. Any other stuff y'all have observed and whatnot that you wanna have a convo about? Yeah, the stream intro of the phone to the camera, because why not? Yeah. Okay. Just one sec. Yeah, no. Because there were issues with the Instagram and stuff, I've just been periodically checking the checking my Instagram DMs and stuff, because that was part of the communique stuff. But nothing new has come in on that front. Hello, phone, you are loved. Well. Actually. That's just a bad angle. There we go. Happy thumb is happy. Anyway. Yeah. So, for whatever else. Glad we got some good discuss with Botany, and yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time. Like, I'm noticing that, like, after the last week of like, it's interesting how stuff is coming out. So, excuse me. Do we want to? Come on. Okay. Do we want to read through the shed for next week? So I think that's what you were suggesting for the breakdown. Also, I do appreciate that they were having, like, mate, because, like, you know, local drink options and things. Mate's pretty good. Just the first line for Pink Dog, right? Carlos, stop being an idiot. Alright. Okay. Let's give it a try. Alright. Sounds good. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. It might be less, but we'll aim for that. The info's in the Discord and whatnot. Yeah. So for right now, anyone have other things to have a convo about, or what? Oh yeah. I want to say this was from 2021. No, this was 2020. Yeah. So, like, at least I want to say it was 2020. It might have been. It might have been last year. I don't know. But I picked up a sketch thing to do daily sketches starting March 4th, and got through what, May 7th, it looks like. No, there's a July 23rd. Yeah, it must have been 2020, because it's still got, like, the ATP stuff from when we were doing the biology of plants readings. So yeah, if a walkthrough of this when it's finally finished is a thing that y'all would be interested in seeing, let me know. Also rediscovered like mini comic strip in here that I had been working on at some point. Sounds like a good try was made. Going to go back to it. Yeah. That's the re-entry into the sketch thing. So I mean, there's a good chunk of it that was worked with last time, but I mean, when do we not want to see your art? Fair. Like, in the spirit of that, right? We have the aptly named Dorpy Sonic Supreme over here. So, yeah. In which trying to draw the hedgehog guy with no reference points. Like at all. I forgot I put these in here. Yeah, okay. So there's that. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Fun times. Okay. Alright. So, anyone else have observations or things or whatnot that y'all want to have a discuss about? Or no? Come on. There we go. Alright. So, good for now? Alright. Sounds good. Alright. So, I'm at a good spot to stop for today. And scrolling through who's on for a raid and whatnot, I'm seeing David Peterson and Shane McGinnis. Now, Shane might be wrapping up. I don't know. But who do we want to go visit? I don't know. Right now it's loading, so we can see what Shane's doing. Okay. Well, it's only been on for an hour and 18 minutes, so we should be alright. Okay. So while we're having to think about that, I'm gonna unplug the mic. So I'm gonna mute it so it doesn't get all crackly. Unplug it and put the headphones on. Alright, there we go. I won't be sticking around, so I have no preference. Alright. Let's see. What's Shane doing? I mean, if it actually loads. So there's that. Okay. Alright. Well, thank you very much for hanging out and being awesome. I much appreciate it. There we go. Alright. And if you would. Okay. That's not how you do that. 1 second. Alright. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks for being awesome and hanging out and stuff. And yeah. Have a fabulous rest of your day. I will see you later. Bye. And now that I have my computer back, I'll actually, be doing the editing and stuff, because there's there's a whole bunch of videos that I was partly working on, and that didn't happen because there was no computer. So, anyway. Right. Now, why is it being a pain in the working? It's taking forever to load. Okay. There's that. Stop